fallout today from the recent budget changes known as the sequester. Still weird. As the FAA begins furloughing air traffic controllers to trim $600 million from its budget. The move already leading to reports of flight delays across the country. But critics suggest this is nothing more than a political strategy to get travelers to complain to lawmakers, saying the FAA could easily reduce its budget in other areas that would not delay passengers. Some of the spending they point to, the $500 million the FAA is spending on, quote, consultants, or the $325 million for supplies and travel. And there's the Department of Transportation's $474 million grant program that promises to make communities more livable and sustainable. You may recall the TSA, a different agency, but it's just speaks to the spending at our government level. Recently okayed a $50 million contract for new uniforms. That's a lot of dough. Are we well spending it? Leslie Marshall is a syndicated radio talk show host and a Fox News contributor. Chris Plante is host of The Chris Plante Show. So TSA is under DHS, which is not the same. FAA is under Department of Transportation. But the point is just that they spend. They spend, and they spend. And they found $50 million to spend over at the TSA on the uniforms. But when it comes to air traffic controllers, now they really have to furlough and cut back. Your thoughts, Chris?
Well, I mean, again, the numbers are all there, and you laid out some very important numbers there. $474 million to make communities more livable through the FAA. Honestly, money well spent, I'm sure. We're talking about flight delays that would more than double the worst flight delay day of last year, which was entirely because of weather, of 2012. 3,000 flight delays in a single day. They're talking about 6,700 flight delays every day in this. Everyone in this town knows that the president has the ability to just wave his hand and make this all go away. This is 100% politics, 100% about the midterm elections. It's entirely about making Republicans out to be the bad guy. The Republicans have proposed legislation. I actually talked about this on my radio show for an hour today with callers. And I found articles like this one from February 28th. Ezra Klein, a well-known Obama supporter at the Washington Post, pointing out that the Republicans offered Barack Obama the keys to undo all of this, to soften the blow, to make sure that the money that we cut was from, community quality of life improvement programs and not air traffic control. He's decided to inflict as much pain as possible on the American people for purely political reasons.
Leslie?
Oh, boy. How much time do I have? First of all, Chris, I am touched that you and fellow Republicans are so concerned about my traveling from L.A. to Orlando with 2 toddlers tomorrow with an additional 2.5-hour delay. Thank you. I know how concerned you are for my well-being and that they're not handing out cocktails for that. No, Chris, you guys had an opportunity, when you talk about opportunities, to sit down and not even have the sequester happen. Do you remember when the president listed all the areas that would be affected with cuts, one of which was air traffic control? Do you also remember Republicans saying at that time it was a fear tactic, it wouldn't happen? Now that it is happening, he's making it happen for political reasons. Air traffic controllers are union employees. Unions back Democrats. The union said then, and they say now, that it was a 4-month process that they were phasing in the furloughs or phasing out the working hours simply because of safety. And 70% of the budget is payroll. So you can look at those big numbers, but you can't ignore an overwhelming majority of numbers that are going to be affected, and that is going to affect flights, and that was said prior to sequestration.
Go ahead, Chris.
The sequestration was the president's idea. He's tried to disassociate himself from his own idea, proposed by his White House. Of course, they said it didn't have to happen. All the Republicans had to do was capitulate to every single White House demand, every Democrat demand, and then it wouldn't happen. The reality is, and I have the article in my hand right here, from Ezra Klein at the Washington Post, the Republicans have offered the president the opportunity to undo all of the hardships that you would be facing with your toddlers going to Orlando tomorrow. Have a lot of fun. And it's entirely up to the president. Now, to claim that this is the Republic, it's just, I mean, it's the demonization of everything, and the president takes responsibility for absolutely nothing. This is all on him, and he can snap his fingers and make it go away, and you know perfectly well that that's the case.
I want to ask you about that, Leslie, but I do want to tell the viewers what we were talking about. The airlines have launched a campaign to direct passengers to blame the Obama administration in Congress and on this website have posted, quote, send a message to the White House, the Department of Transportation, the FAA, and Congress, and tell them don't ground America. Tell them that you oppose FAA-imposed flight delays. So they're trying to get the passengers in on this, which does suggest, they want activism by the passengers who are affected. Maybe you will be so inspired when you travel with your kids. But I want to point this out to you. This is the point Chris is trying to make, that twice, at least two GOP senators wrote bills to try to give President Obama the authority to make spending decisions that he thinks are more sensible. So if he doesn't like this, maybe he could take the $50 million back from the TSA. Maybe they just paid a bunch of money to have, to launch Women in Transportation, a video series, which we have some video of. I mean, why did we have to spend on that? President Obama was offered the authority to sort of redline this stuff and say no to that, love women in transportation, love new uniforms, but no, I'd rather have air traffic controllers on the job. And the Senate Democrats blocked those reforms.
Because this is, again, as we Americans love my country, my people, but we really are a knee-jerk reaction after the fact society on almost everything. This was preventable. The president said that. The American people said that. And quite frankly, to urge anybody to complain now after the fact, we had the power long before knowing what would come down with sequestration as to who we would cast our vote for. We had the power then to pick up our phones, to email, to text, to contact our representatives, and of course we do now. But this is after the fact. It amuses me in a sense that we're talking about this cut, but nobody was complaining about my friend and her husband having to go on furlough and stay home with their kids and getting less pay and sitting home and not being able to work while their work is piling up, because this directly affects not only the American people, this directly affects Republicans, and the flying directly affects politicians on the right and left.
All right, guys.
And so now they're getting annoyed.
I gotta go.
All of that misses the point. The president promised to veto any bill that would have softened the blow. It's entirely up to him. He can snap his fingers and make it go away.
Thank you, panel.